Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rhiannon Fleming. I'm the Digital Engagement Specialist at the Shaw Festival. And today I have the distinct pleasure of sitting down with Philip Akin, actor of the production Trouble in Mind that just opened this past weekend. Philip, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad things are opened. And I've got to just say, yes, I did direct Trouble in Mind, but I also directed Gatsby's Jazz and Sonny's Blues. And I just want to give some street cred out to that production because I'm equally as fond of it. And there's nobody talking about it. And it's a great show with some wonderful performers in it.
That's right. I actually got to enjoy a performance out on the lawn, out at the
Yeah.
BMO stage, which is a fantastic setting.
Yeah, the lawn it's not a bad setting actually. I haven't seen any of the shows in the evening part where basically you're just mosquito food, but in the rest of the day it's kind of glorious.
That's it. Don't forget your bug spray on your way out
That's
to the
right.
theater, right? The life we live in 2021.
I call it theater for the bears.
I like that.
Because you don't know what kind of animal, like there's a rabbit that goes by and then there's a pheasant and then there's motorcycles, and I keep expecting deer to show up or a grizzly or something, but it's just it's pretty wacky. It's pretty wacky.
That's it. That's it. But people are excited to get back to live theater. So
Yes, they are.
it's an experience. It's not just theater anymore, right? It's the immersive experience of where you
Yeah, I find it remarkable talking to a lot of people in the audience, because that's what happens, especially when it's socially distant, right? Is sort of like people don't have a lot of neighbors to talk to, so they turn around and talk to me in the show all the time, and just the joy of even 40, 50 people in a shared space seeing a show together. It's been rather remarkable. And I've met some people who've already seen Trouble in Mind twice, and they have tickets for two more times. I'm like, all right, excellent, good for you.
that's it. That's it. They're excited. They're getting back out there, the world, and you know, they found a production they like. They're gonna enjoy it as much as they can, right?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Maybe for some of the viewers that don't know you, maybe you could introduce yourself and your history and how you came to, well, direct at the Shaw.
Wow. Okay. Well, I was artistic director of Obsidian Theatre, which is Canada's leading Black theatre company. I like to say that because I was one of the founding members, and I was in an administrative role there for about 6 years, and then took over for 14 years as artistic director, and have just been. I guess I left 14 months ago as artistic director. So that ended my 20-year involvement with Obsidian. Um, and I was an actor before that, just general arts hound. The way I got into directing was a bit, I guess it's interesting because I never thought I was going to be a director. It wasn't anything that I started out to do or planned to do. But there was a playwright, Joseph Jomo Pierre, who brought some plays to Obsidian, and Joseph writes from a particularly male perspective, especially from a Scarborough black man perspective. And as a result, people, kind of didn't, I don't know if they didn't want to direct his stuff, but they didn't have as much of an affinity for it as I did.
Right.
So I like to say I was a lot of people's second or third choice, and so, and which I'm quite happy about. I mean, people would go, no, I don't want to do that, and then they'd say, Philip, do you want to do it? I say, yeah. Or two people would say, I don't want to do that, and I'd say, yeah. And so all of a sudden I started to direct because I kept saying yes. And uh it's equally funny, I haven't been to a school, I haven't taken a directing class, I've never assistant directed for anybody. I have done absolutely nothing that virtually all directors do. All I've done is direct shows, learn about people. understand what it was that I really disliked about directors when I was acting. What did I hate about rehearsal halls that were oppressive, and don't do that? And to start to formulate my own theories and ideas and to build my process. And so that's taken a bunch of years, and the process is still ongoing, right? You don't stop. Um, I remember doing Mountaintop down at Shaw, and after a particularly difficult rehearsal, I'm out walking across the back parking lot going, "Oh, it's not going to work," moaning, all that stuff. And I just said, "Philip, y'all need to shut up, just trust the process and it'll happen."
Yeah.
And and it did. And I think about theater a lot. I think about how the the work in the room, why does it work in a certain way? And so, for example, in Trouble in Mind, I wanted to I didn't feel like there was enough forward momentum going through. And so usually you work and you break a play down into beats or units. And I went, why does that bother me? This is the inside of my head, right? This is what happens inside my head.
Yes.
I say the words a beat or a unit, and it reminds me of the markings on a ruler, and they're vertical and they box it in. That's a beat, that's a length. And I went, that doesn't help me. Why do we, as artists who always have so many words at our disposal, why are we choosing these kind of static mental images to break down a play? And so I broke down the play into four things, and I called them drives. And I don't know why I came up with the word drives, but so in Trouble in Mind, drive one starts from the prologue to Graham saying Yale please, and then drive two is the rest of the act. And the second act is commensurately split up. So you people go, okay, well, so you say drive to beat, what to unit, what difference does it make? I think it makes a huge difference, because in actors' minds now, everybody is now on the same page that there is an arc going forward. I stole a phrase from a science fiction book I was reading about this sort of radical communist Chinese party called Eternal Forward. And it just spoke to their idea of being very aggressive and moving forward. So I love that phrase, eternal forward. That led me to drive. That led me to everybody going, there we go. This huge big chunk of play, we're going to drive for that. And then after Yale, please, we reset, we drive to the end of the act. And I believe words shape our universe. It's one of the first things I say in a rehearsal hall. And that's an example of how a word can profoundly shape the way we engage with the play. And also that my head's pretty whacked out.
I think it's you've got so much running through there.
Yeah, but this is me, right? This is me. This is when I was sitting in my cottage down at Shaw. This is me, kind of like going, yeah, yeah, and I pull that, and yeah, no, and I do all this stuff to come up with a concept that I think actually has legs. I
Yeah.
think because I'm really particular about the words that I use, and I just think that that's a great concept. I have to think some more about it, because I wonder if there's other words that will shape those sections in different ways, and how that can expand and grow to next production. I think is really an area of interest for me. I read a thing in the Guardian, and this guy said, "Yes, I'm a believer of CI," and I was like, "What's CI? I never heard of CI. Well, I don't even know what that is." And then he explains it later on. It's a concept of continuous improvement, and I kind of went, "That's great," and that explains why I have two Chinese vertical flutes. They're called a shao, and I've been trying to make a noise out of them for 2 years and failing miserably. But I just this summer I was able to get a bit of a sound out of it. So that's my image of continuous improvement, is to taking on something that you're not really very good at and will never be good at, and continually working to to learn, to, you
Yeah.
know,
I
what
love
does
that.
that teach me, kind of thing.
Yeah. I love that idea of taking perfection off the table almost and kind
Yeah,
of just learning for learning's sake, that the process is never done, right?
yeah. And
Yeah.
and I mean, there's that great phrase, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And that's a really valuable thing. It's a really
Yeah.
valuable thing.
Life advice for sure.
Yeah, that's me. That's what I do. That's how I direct life advice.
Um, how do you take that process and all of that beginning work and bring it to an ensemble or the cast that you're working with and kind of develop it from there?
Well, as I didn't go to, and get a master's in directing, I don't do a lot of the the breakdown stuff that a lot of people do. I don't think of it in that way. For me, I go, what is my central, what's my image, right? And then you get an image, um and then other images and ideas attached to it. So there's certain basic things that I believe. I believe that um theater is about people, humans, and they're not stereotypes and they're not archetypes. And I don't believe in magical Negroes who are all knowing and all caring and just there to give you. I don't believe that. And so with something like Trouble in Mind, that became a really big thing. I tell actors not to value judge characters. It's a really bad habit that they have. And
Right.
what they do is they look at their character and they say, "Oh, well, she's really this or that, or he's really." And I go, "No, he's not. He's just a person. She's just a person who has this need and this intent in the moment. Why are you trying to put a value on that? Because in real life, none of us are that self-aware. We just go and do what we're going to do, and then later on, when you find yourself in the middle of a divorce, you kind of go, oh well, maybe that wasn't the right choice. Right? But it didn't happen in the moment. And so I believe that an audience has to do their job. I believe they're there to work. So if I can get the actors to not value judge, if I can get them to just be in the moment with their intent, and then the audience will make the judgment about who and what they are. The actor doesn't have to do it. So it was interesting in one review that I've read on Trouble, and they kind of like talk about Graham's part, about what a terrible, arrogant, blah 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 person he is. But you know what? We turned around and said, what if this guy really really believes in what he's doing?
Right.
And then now you get a complicated character. And I don't like simplistic characters. I always say in the first day that a character is made up of hundreds and thousands of threads, and we every time we work on a scene, every time we do a run, it adds another thread. And so these characters get to be rich and complex, not one note. So that's a lot of kind of like the generic parameters by which I start a rehearsal from. And then there are things that would be um, particular
Right.
to each show. So, but mostly I work. I kind of think I have an image based inner language. And I try. I was talking to a young director few days ago, and was saying they need to just keep reading and I mean just anything. It doesn't, in a sense, it doesn't really matter. Um, if I get eternal forward from a science fiction novel, and I get continuous improvement from The Guardian, and like you just keep reading and you just keep learning, because you never know where an interesting idea will lodge in your brain. And so I keep a book, and I write things down, and all of that. Um, yeah, I always, theater's an art, and the more we kind of try to measure art like a rule, using a ruler, what are we really doing? What are we truncating? What are we boxing in? Because
Hmm.
art's not like that. I may not like particular art. I mean, I'm not a fan of Jeff Koons, right? I'm not a fan of his art. I'm a big fan of Carol Walker, although it's really, it's art you've got to wrestle with. I have all sorts. I got art all over my house, right? All of which I hope is not necessarily challenging, but it I react to it in a particular way. And art, by its very nature, is, I think, exploratory. It's a desire to communicate. And so why are we trying to box it in? And so yeah, so I kind of believe in that. And I don't know, I guess my gauge of success is not about reviews or box office, especially now that I'm no longer an artistic director. I don't have to worry about that. Um, it's about the um, the kind of crew we became, the artists, the designers, the IA crew, everybody. What's that crew? And we all are in this together. We've all built this thing together. And in Trouble in Mind, it was so wonderful. I mean, the guys on the crew came and they sat through notes. We hung out, we talked. It was a whole group. And I use the word crew advisedly. And this is also how I think, okay? When Allen Iverson was playing in the NBA, he got dissed a lot because he always traveled with a bunch of his boyhood friends, right?
Hmm.
And people would be like, "Why is he doing?" And I read Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's a brilliant black writer, and he grew up in Philadelphia. He said he never had any trouble with white people because growing up he never met any. That none of them came down to that part of the his where he lived. So he said, if I want to go 3 blocks over to go visit my girlfriend, like when I'm 14, 15, I don't go there by myself because I'll get beat up. So what you do is you get all your crew together and you go together so that can happen. And so everywhere you went with your crew because they were the people who were there to back you up. So from Allen Iverson to Ta-Nehisi Coates to the idea of building a crew in the theater of which we're all there together in a visceral way, right? Not just on deck, but in every part of the rehearsal. Everybody's got a voice, everybody's there backing everybody up, everybody's got your six. If I can do that in a rehearsal, then that's a success to me, and I don't care about the rest.
I love that. That makes so much sense, coming together and being a place where you can all rely on each other.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But you see, I mean, it does. It's very true. It gives a place to rely on it, but it gives immense value to everything that everybody does, because not everybody, I mean, in theater's hierarchical, right? And so um certain people are kind of not looked down upon, but not given as much voice in the room. And so when I work to say, I give, voice in the room. So all of a sudden I'm having a conversation with the sound guy, and he says, "Oh, I've changed the, I don't even know what he's changing, but he changed something." And I went, "Man, that's real. That really sounds like Chicago blues harp." And he said, "Yeah." And then all of a sudden this huge conversation opens up about how I used to soak a harp and stick it in vodka, and you get stoned while you're playing, and all sorts of stuff happened. But the fact of the matter was, it was a little thing that he did that I noticed. We had the conversation, we built a rapport, and what that means is that everybody gets invested in whatever they do to make this show the best it can. That's building a crew. That's
Yeah.
building people who are not just checking in and checking out. And that to me is great. When I get some of the guys there saying, "Man, the shows we do, I love working on one of your shows," it's because they know if they come up to me and say, "Yo, Philip, this I saw this, blah blah blah," I'm going to take them seriously because they're all smart.
Yeah.
And why are we locking smart people out of the room? It, it
Yeah.
it's not smart, right?
Counterproductive for sure. And it
Yeah.
allows them, when they have that moment, you're going to capture the best, like you said, the best out of people because they're
Yeah.
willing to bring that.
Yeah.
I love
So that's a long but literally, Rhiannon, that's how my brain works. It kind of jumps all over and builds this kind of thing in my head. Um, Peter Brook, in his book Tip of the Tongue, talks about a concept called the formless hunch. And it's some you just go, and I've experienced this several times, where I just go, "Okay, guys, I cannot tell you why it has to be this way. I have no words to tell you why this sequence has to work this way. All I know is that it does." And that's a formless hunch. It's just, you just go, "No, it has to be this."
right.
And you have to trust your instincts and everything about your craft and your work, and you trust that, and you go, "No, the sequence has got to go like this." And you know I'm it's like the ending of Trouble in Mind, and the ending kept evolving. But because I had said to Nafisa during rehearsals that I wanted her to say the last line to Peter Millard. And then just listening to the applause and the way the lights were going and everything, and I said, "Okay, no, I need you to turn around." So she did a little turn and said the last line of Peter, and then I said, "No, what it has to be is I need you to turn. I need you to be looking out of Vom 2, which is 45 degrees away from Peter, on your last line, and then you hear the applause, you register it evokes an emotion, and then you turn to him."
Wow.
Right? I don't know why
Yeah,
that's right, but it's right.
that's it. In that moment, you knew.
Yeah. And you have to trust that and go with that, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You have to make the choice and go with it, but also be willing to move if it's not feeling right, is what I'm
Yeah,
getting.
no. Yeah.
Yeah.
We changed the last third of the play the day before our first yeah, our first preview. Because because there's three Chaos and Bellevilles, and the last one we had gone down. I'd in, encouraged us to go down a particular path, and then I got asked a question, on a Wednesday by an actor, and it was like pulling a thread out of a sweater, and then your arm falls off, and then I went, "Oh my gosh!" And I went home, and I sat and I thought, and I drove to St. Catharines, and I sat in a patio and I thought, and I went, "Man, you were so stupid. How did you miss that?" And I had a good flagellation session on myself, and then called Nafisa and talked with her, and then went into rehearsal the next day and said, "Okay, I'm gonna change all of this."
Yeah. Yeah. And your crew showed up.
And my crew showed up. Some of them a little more reluctantly than others at that point. They're like, for 3 months and now this, Philip, really?
That's
But it
it.
was the better decision, and it was the better decision, and it resonated things in in a more elegant and nuanced way. So that's what we did.
Interesting. It's nice to hear all these little tidbits because, as you know, viewing the previews, the team just made it look so seamless, and to know that that's constantly going on in the background is
Yeah.
really a testament to everyone.
I give people space, right? Like I'm, it's a funny balancing act because a lot of actors want like solid blocking. They want it to be a little bit prescriptive. They want to know where they are when they're, all of that kind of stuff. And
Right.
I keep saying, it's all about intent, really. You change your intent, the blocking has to change, and that makes them very nervous. So people will by themselves kind of build their own structure,
Right.
right? And that's great. Um, so I was talking with Patrick Galligan at the closing night or the opening night party, and I said, "Dude, I noticed you're doing a nice little hoochie cooch wander around there." And he said, "Well, yeah. Is it all right?" I said, "Of course it's all right." He said, "Well, you said we could do it, so I thought and it was great because it opened up a thing. It's not changing his what he's saying and why he's saying it. It's just energizing the movement in a different way. He knows he's got to end up in a particular place at a particular time. The rest of it is so great. I love that. I
Yes.
love that sense of working on intent and the clarity of what's being said, as opposed to sit here, dot, dot, dot. I mean, sometimes you have to be prescriptive for sure.
Right.
But, Graham in his big speech, for weeks and months, sat down on the edge of the platform, which was actually a weaker position. And I didn't say anything and didn't say anything. And one day he just goes, he felt it in his body that it couldn't go to that. And he goes and he grabs the stool and he pulls it over and makes it part of the action. Now, I could have told him to do that in June, right? But isn't it more exciting? Isn't it better that he finds that moment and does it, and it's all integrated in his internal dialogue, right?
Yeah.
That to me is I think good directing, giving people the space to make that kind of discovery and run with it and know that if I ask them to do something they're really unsure about, that they know that I'm asking for a reason. We try it, we do it, and I turn around and I say, "No, Patrick, I understand why this is uncomfortable for you this moment, blah blah blah." I said, "But here's why I think it can be important. So think about it. If y'all hate it, don't do it, right?" And you do that, and all of a sudden you have some magnificent actors who go out on a limb and try stuff and go, "Yeah, I see why that's important."
Mhm.
It's building that crew and the trust in that crew.
Yeah. Wow. Um,
That's me as a director, which is like, what are you talking about? It's not even direction.
it is if you give it.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe as our final note, being 2021, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about maybe some of the challenges that you face, with all the world's going through COVID and state of affairs in the world and things like that. Is there any kind of, challenge or that was really at the forefront of your rehearsal process?
I mean, all the COVID stuff was hard. I mean, for months I'm directing foreheads, you know,
Right, all of this.
yeah, it was just hard, and it's not just simply that. It's the I found it so hard to communicate through the mask, and depending on what mask people were wearing on what day, depended it cut down on the amount that I could actually hear. Um, when we were when we were rehearsing out of doors, it was, the people knew they had to project a little bit more, and then we got inside, and then I'd lose voices, and people lose the wholeness of the individual they're working with.
Right.
Right? So generally speaking, when an actor's learning lines, right, they kind of like, and then they kind of jump off book, and then it all falls apart because all the words are in their head, and they're trying to like remember the words and call them up in their head, and then they get a little better at that, and then it goes to their, I call it reading their lines off the back of their eyelids, and they're kind of like in a scene, but they're not really looking at anybody. They're reading the lines like right there. And then finally, one day comes, oh, you're in the scene with me too. Oh, okay. Oh, you're doing that. Oh, well, then I'll react to that. But we went from eyelids to that next stage, and that next stage wasn't there because it was masked. And so we ended up in this kind of a, just a bit of a nether space where it was really hard. And then the masks came off, and then fear quotient goes up, and then people get comfortable, and then all of a sudden we get to the point where we can interact as artists, in the fullness of what we're doing. So that was hard. But and it's for everybody, right? And the other thing too is the rules, all of the COVID rules make sense, and then they don't make sense, right? So the more you go down the path of shaking your fist at the clouds, because why is it the actors can have their masks off and I'm sitting by myself in a 250 seat theater and I can't take my mask off? The more you go down that road, the more mental turmoil you have going on, and you just spiral into this place of bitching and kvetching, and it's pointless, right? So how do you circumvent that? And I just say to people, do not go down that hole. It is what it is. Stop, right? One of the hardest things I had to learn as a director was to let people do their jobs, right? So and this is going to sound weird, but I'm sitting there, and two female stage managers are lifting a couch. And in the back of my head, I hear my mother saying, Philip, what is the, get up, go and help. And you can't, right? Because you got to find that place to give respect to people. And if they've got a real issue, then they'll ask, and then you'll help. But in the meantime, you say, this is their job. You have to let them do it. And so that was one of the hardest things I had to do, is just sit back and go, let people do what they need to do, give them respect of their job and what, they've been hired for a reason. They're good at what they do. Give them the opportunity to be great at it. So there was a lot of that going on too.
Yes.
The other stuff, stuff in the play, all of the language issues in the play and all of that kind of stuff, that none of that bothers me. It's it's the play. We're here to do the play. Alice Childress is a brilliant playwright. She wrote things for a reason. It's my job and the actor's job to discover that reason in the best possible way. It's not our job to turn around and rewrite and diss this Black playwright.
Right.
So I have no problems with that.
But I also think that speaks to, again, that circle of trust that you've built. Is the atmosphere in which it's brought up, I can imagine, makes a big difference too.
Yeah, because I'm like, there's a lot of stuff that's there's it can be. I just think that the language, there's a reason for this. It's not, no Black playwright is going to write some of that language carelessly.
Right. Yep.
It's there for a reason. And if you don't understand the reason, if you don't have the knowledge or the background or the ability to find out that reason, y'all need to just not direct that play. Y'all need to not be in that play. Because if you can't get out of yourself and go to discover the rich, bountiful world that someone like Alice Childress, then you have no business being in the room. Do yourself a favor, do us all a favor, go do something else somewhere else. So that's my discussion on it. So that's how
Yeah.
long it takes.
I mean, I feel like I've had a window into your life, into your brain.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
been
it's a
fantastic.
scary place sometimes. I'm sorry about that, Rhiannon.
It's okay. It's okay. It's nice to have a vacation from this one into somebody
Yeah.
else's for a little bit. Oh, well, Philip, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. And like I said, it's been really great to get to know you a bit and about your process. Um, and for our watchers, our audience out there, please do. You can go to shawfest.com, find all the information on Trouble in Mind, which just opened, but not only that, but Gatsby's Jazz, Sonny's Blues as well. That's
Yeah.
playing through until October, I believe, as well.
Yep. Both my shows up and running, yo.
That's it. The best place to be now. It's just feet back, right?
That's I wish it's unpacking. I'm being defeated today by the amount of unpacking I have yet to do because I just got back home yesterday.
Right,
So
right.
so I
Well,
think I'm
sorry,
gonna
but also glad to be the reason why you're a little distracted from it.
yeah, it's just yeah, it's just traveling, it's getting, I mean, that's a big thing. All the COVID traveling and stuff like that is hard. Um, but I'll
Yeah.
just, I've learned enough. I've got one email to write, and then I'm going to take a nap before I unpack anymore. So there's my day.
Ah, I'm jealous.
Really, the internet can go down just by turning a switch, Rhiannon, and then
That's true. All the
snooze
Zoom work.
time. Snooze time. Okay.
That's it. Oh, I'll keep it
Take
in mind.
care.
Keep it in my back pocket.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Philip.